Revealed. After 12 days away, my life-changing secret home exposed unexpectedly on the lawn. The morning sun spilled golden light across Sarah's small yard, glistening off freshly painted signs stuck in the ground. Each one displayed a drawing, a part of the vibrant tapestry her two children had unearthed while she was away. Community garden. Together we grow. Another boldly read. Her heart raced. A sudden jolt of panic gnawed at her stomach. She had left her heart and dreams behind, tucked neatly in sketchbooks, hidden from the world. Dark thoughts clouded her mind as she thought of her children. Mrs. Thompson had promised to keep an eye on them. The elderly neighbor was a strong hand, but she often poked the wound of Sarah's insecurities, reminding her of the sacrifices she'd made in raising the kids alone. Can you juggle your dreams and motherhood? Mrs. Thompson's voice echoed in her ears. The meeting with her hospitalized father had been a wrenching decision, a choice that felt like letting go of precious threads that wove her life together. Returning home after her father's recovery, she never expected to find her private vision sprawled across her lawn. A flurry of emotions twisted inside her. Pride, embarrassment, and a sense of vulnerability. Each sketch was there, vibrant and alive, as if the entire town conspired to celebrate her dreams. Her neighbors had boldly stepped into her life, igniting her aspirations and turning them into something tangible. Then came the whispers and cheers from the gathered crowd, faces she knew well, their expressions beaming with admiration. "Look what we've done for you, Sarah," they chorused. But deep down, a voice within her whispered stark questions. Am I worthy of all this? What if I can't live up to it? Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. The local families gathered, smiling and laughing, fueled by hope and excitement. Their faces glowed in the sun, a sea of support washing over her. "This is for you, Sarah. We believe in you," someone shouted. The memory of her father's fragile state flickered in her mind, reminding her that sometimes it took a community to raise a dream. Yet recognition felt heavy, an albatross around her neck. Could she truly own this? Could she balance her fervent desire to nurture both her family and her aspirations without drowning in self-doubt? As she stepped closer, breath taken by the beauty of it all, her children bounded up to her, eyes sparkling with excitement. "Mom, look at all the colors," they exclaimed, their innocent enthusiasm tinging the moment with brightness. A sudden wave of warmth washed through her, igniting a flicker of courage. Sarah realized that maybe, just maybe, her dreams were more than hers alone. They belonged to the community that wrapped around her like a safety net. But the question lingered: would Sarah step forward into this unexpected chapter of her life or retreat into the shadows of her insecurities? As she stood, surrounded by flowers and voices, the garden was alive with possibility, and she had to face what it meant to be both a mother and her own person. Would she be brave enough to embrace it? As Sarah stood there, caught in the whirlwind of colors and voices, uncertainty slithered through her veins. She touched the vibrant petals of a marigold, feeling the soft, warm texture beneath her fingers. It was a small gesture, yet it ignited something deep within her. The laughter of her children blended into a distant melody, urging her to take a breath, to embrace the moment rather than be swept away by it. "Mom, can we help?" Lily asked, tugging at her sleeve, her face a canvas of eager expectation. "Yeah, can we plant more flowers?" Jake chimed in, eyes wide with the belief that they could somehow make the garden more beautiful than it already was. Their enthusiasm, infectious and genuine, wrapped around Sarah like a hug. "Of course we can," she replied, her voice stronger than she felt. In that moment, she made a choice to lean into the chaos rather than retreat from it. She looked around, seeing familiar faces, each one reflecting back a truth she couldn't ignore. This was not just her dream anymore. It was theirs too. As they gathered tools and seeds, the community shared stories of how this project had come to life. Neighbors spoke about late-night brainstorming sessions, and how they had each contributed a piece of their spirit to the garden. Someone mentioned how it reminded them of childhood summers spent digging in the dirt, laughter mingling with the sound of rustling leaves. These stories twirled around Sarah, enveloping her in a sense of belonging she hadn't felt in years. The warmth of the sun on her back faded into the background as she watched her children dig and plant, their hands dirted but their faces pure with joy. They were living the dream she had wrapped herself around so tightly for fear of failing. As they worked together, she felt the weight of her insecurities begin to lift, replaced by a camaraderie that rooted itself deeper with each shared moment. "Let us make a sign," Sarah suggested, inspired by the messages that filled her yard. "Something that shows what this garden means to us all." The kids cheered, and soon enough, they were creating colorful banners and signs, filled with scribbles of hope and words of encouragement, just like the ones they had seen when first arriving home. It was a transformation and alchemy of heartache into art. With each stroke of paint, Sarah felt another layer of doubt peel away. Perhaps she wasn't just a mother or a caregiver. Perhaps she was a creator, an artist, a part of a tapestry that intertwined their lives just as vividly as the flowers they planted. But just as a feeling of euphoria began to settle in her chest, a scream pierced through the laughter. A dog barked furiously near the back of the crowd, causing several people to pause and turn. Sarah's heart thudded in her chest as she glanced over her shoulder, anxiety crashing back in. Who was causing a scene? As she strained to see, a figure emerged, wild-eyed and frantic, grasping a crumpled paper that fluttered in the breeze. Sarah felt a chill creep up her spine. What could this mean? The cheerful atmosphere shifted, charges of uncertainty threading through the group once more. What now? She thought, her heart racing again. The answer felt vital, like the unraveling of a secret that had been buried deep among the rows of flowers. What did the paper hold? As the crowd murmured, Sarah couldn't shake the gnawing feeling that perhaps the garden wasn't the only thing about to change. What awaited them on the other side of this interruption? Sarah's breath caught in her throat as the figure drew closer, her heart racing in sync with the anxious murmurs that rippled through the crowd. The wild-eyed stranger held the crumpled paper like a lifeline, desperation etched across his face. With each step, the sounds of the bustling garden faded away, replaced by the steady beat of her own pulse. "Excuse me! Excuse me!" he shouted, urgency lacing his words. Faces turned, eyes wide with curiosity and concern. Lily clutched Sarah's hand tightly, Jake's small fingers curled into her arm, seeking comfort in her presence. In that moment they were all anchored to one another, united in shared uncertainty. "What is it?" Sarah called out, her voice barely breaking the tension in the air. The man stumbled forward, breathless. There's something you need to see." His eyes scanned the crowd, landing on Sarah, as if he recognized the weight she carried. The paper danced between his fingers, begging to be unfurled. With an effort, he smoothed it against the cool air, revealing its contents. It was a handwritten letter, ink smudged in places. The curious faces of the neighbors leaned in closer, their collective breath bated, waiting for clarity in the chaos. Sarah felt a shiver. She stepped forward, releasing her children's hands to reach for the note. "What is it about?" she pressed, her voice firm despite the trepidation bubbling inside her. "It's about the garden." "About you," he stuttered, almost as if the weight of the revelation had knocked him off balance. The crowd gasped, eyes darting between Sarah and the stranger. What could this possibly mean? As he began to read, Sarah listened intently. The letter spoke of sacrifices made, of dreams woven through dirt and roots, of how the garden was more than just a patch of land. It held secrets, memories, and perhaps something she was unprepared to confront. It says, he paused to catch his breath, that this garden was meant to help you heal, that it's part of a bigger plan. But there's more. There's a name mentioned. Someone who has been waiting for you to find them. Sarah's stomach churned. The name hung in the air like a silent whisper, the crowd's collective breath catching as if they all sensed the weight of it, much heavier than they had anticipated. Anxiety and hope collided within her, making her head spin. "Who?" A voice broke through, filled with urgency. The man's eyes were locked on the letter. "Your father," he murmured. "He has been looking for you." Silence enveloped them as the words settled like stones in her chest. The realization crashed over her like a tidal wave. Memories she had buried deep under layers of hurt and fear surged to the surface. Her father, the man she had thought lost to time, was alive and searching for her. The laughter of the garden seemed a distant echo, overwhelmed by the weight of this revelation. Everything she had rebuilt in this moment felt fragile, like a house of cards teetering on the edge. "Mom?" Lily's voice pulled her from the abyss. "What does that mean?" Sarah's heart raced, thoughts swirling. I don't know, sweetheart, she managed, her voice barely a whisper. "But I think we might need to find out." The sun glinted off the marigold petals, unaware of the storm brewing within her. Uncertainty wove itself into her thoughts, threading a path toward an emotional fork she hadn't anticipated. Would she be strong enough to withstand the truths that awaited? A decision lingered in the air. Would she dare seek out the family she had thought lost, or would she retreat once more into the safety of her garden? Sarah faced the crowd, searching their faces for guidance, unsteady yet resolute. "Who's with me?" she called, ready to step toward whatever awaited on the other side of this revelation. As her neighbors exchanged looks and murmurs, Sarah felt the ground beneath her, firm and steady. Nothing would be the same again. Not after today. What lay waiting in the shadows of her past, and what kind of strength would emerge when she finally confronted it? The murmurs of the crowd grew louder, intertwining threads of worry and excitement. Sarah could feel the weight of their curiosity pressing against her, almost like a physical force. Her heart hammered in her chest, the adrenaline coursing through her limbs as she awaited a response. The fear of the unknown battled with a flicker of hope. One neighbor, a gentle old man named Mr. Thompson, stepped forward. "Sarah, if you think it's important, then we're with you," he said, his voice steady despite the uncertainty that lingered in the air. The nods that followed from others in the crowd felt like a small army rallying around her. She wasn't alone. She had a community ready to stand by her side. "Okay," Sarah said, her voice stronger now, the initial shock wearing off. "But I need to prepare myself. If I reach out, there's no going back." She blinked away tears, the vulnerability threatening to spill over. "I have to face my father. I want to understand why he left and why he is searching for me now." As if sensing her resolve, Lily squeezed her hand tighter. "But what if he is not what you expect? What if he is not kind?" A chill ran down Sarah's spine. What if he wasn't he? But she had to know. The longing for answers had always burned inside her. She knelt down to Lily's level, pushing her fears aside. "Whatever happens, I'll always be here for you and Jake. The family we are will never change no matter what." In that moment she felt anchored by their bond. The garden, once a simple place of healing, had transformed into a symbol of new beginnings and burgeoning courage. "Let us go home," she said finally. "We have some planning to do." In the tranquility of their house, Sarah settled with Lily and Jake at the table. Maps and papers were strewn about, a jigsaw puzzle of her past mixed with hopes for the future. "We should start by tracing where he might be. I remember bits names of towns, old friends. If he's been looking for me, we'll figure this out," she stated, feeling the fire of determination creeping back. Jake looked up from his colorful drawings. "Can I help?" he asked, his voice innocent and brave, a spark of light within the heavy atmosphere. "Yes, buddy. You can be our detective." Sarah smiled, her heart swelling with pride. The afternoon passed in animated discussions, intertwining bits of history with laughter. For the first time in years, Sarah felt a swell of hope replacing some of her uncertainties. Maybe the journey wouldn't be so frightening. As the sun dipped lower in the sky, casting hues of orange and pink through the kitchen window, a knock echoed through the silence. The sound jolted them. Sarah turned, her heart racing anew. Who could be at the door at this hour? Being caught in this whirlwind of emotions was one thing, but facing someone at the door? It felt monumental. With a shaky breath, she walked toward it, turning the handle with hesitant hands. Who would stand on her doorstep, and would they bring further revelations or just more questions to unfold? She swung the door open, and a familiar silhouette stood before her, framed by the fading light. The image struck her like a lightning bolt, and she froze, a breath catching in her throat. "Dad?" she barely managed, her heart in her mouth. The moment of truth arrived, and all the unresolved histories of love and loss seemed to converge at this very point. What would she feel next? Anger, relief, or something entirely different? Her father stood there, a ghost from her past with uncertainty etched across his face. The years had changed him, but his eyes, those familiar deep-set eyes, held an unmistakable warmth that sent a wave of conflicted emotions washing over Sarah. "Sarah," he said, his voice breaking the tension. It was shaky yet soft, a mixture of regret and longing. I've missed you. I know I have a lot to explain. The world around them faded, the chaos of the day evaporating into an eerie stillness. Sarah stood frozen, processing the weight of his words. She had rehearsed this moment 1,000 times in her mind, dreaming of a reunion woven with nostalgia and love. Yet here he was, and the feelings swirling inside her were anything but straightforward. Why now? She finally asked, the tremor in her voice betraying her. Why after all these years? Questions bubbled in her throat, each one more urgent than the last. Why didn't he come back sooner? Why did he leave in the first place? He shifted his weight, glancing over her shoulder as if sensing the crowd watching them with bated breath. I wish I had a good excuse. I was lost, Sarah. I left thinking it was for your own good. But I've realized it wasn't right to abandon you to abandon us. Sarah could feel a lump forming in her throat. How do you expect me to believe that? You were gone for so long I didn't want to hurt you, he interrupted, reaching out as if to bridge the gulf between them. At first I thought it was best to keep my distance. There's so much I need to tell you, so much I regret. His voice became a whisper. But how do I trust you? The question cut through the air, stark and raw. Trust, after all, was a fragile thing. His face contorted in anguish, and Sarah saw a flicker of the father she once knew. I don't expect you to right away. But I'm here to try. To make things right. I'm hoping you'll hear me out. Behind her, she felt the warmth of Lily and Jake's presence. They were her constants, the ground she always returned to. She turned slightly, glancing back at them. The innocent look in Jake's eyes and the quiet strength of Lily reminded her of whom she had to protect. This moment wasn't just about her. It included them too. Can you give me a moment? She asked, uncertainty weaving through her words. He nodded, stepping back as she closed the door, but not without feeling the weight of his gaze on her. The door muffled the sound of the outside world, but it couldn't silence her whirlwind of emotions. Standing there in the dim light of their home, Sarah faced her children squarely. What do I do? She didn't need their answers, but hearing them somehow anchored her. See what he wants, Lily suggested, her voice steady despite the tremors in her mother's expression. You deserve to know. Maybe this is your chance, Mom. Jake chimed in with a hopeful grin. Yeah, it could be good. Could it? The words hung heavy in the air, stirring a heady mix of anticipation and dread. Reaching for the door handle again felt monumental. Taking a deep breath, Sarah unlocked the door with trembling hands. Could she truly face this man who had once been her everything? Would he still be that person, or had the years erased any remnants of the father she loved? As the door creaked open once more, an unexpected sound sliced through the moment. A loud crash echoed from the street, followed by a collective gasp. Sarah's heart raced. What had happened now? The door swung inward, and she stepped outside, unsure of where this next chapter might lead, but knowing the answers were closer than she had ever imagined. Would she find closure or another shocking revelation? The sight outside her door sent shockwaves through Sarah. A car lay tipped over, its tires spinning uselessly in the air, while people gathered in a circle around it, murmuring in disbelief. Sirens wailed in the distance, piercing through the chaos. Mom! Jake's voice pulled her back, and she turned to see him tugging gently at her sleeve. What is happening? His eyes were wide, a mix of fear and curiosity. I don't know, she murmured, pausing at the threshold. Her father stood a few feet away, his expression shifting from hope to concern. He looked as if he wanted to step forward but was held back by the sudden shift in focus. Lily edged closer to Jake, her brow furrowed. Shouldn't we call someone? As the sirens grew louder, a part of Sarah wanted to turn away, retreat back into the safety of her home. The weight of her father's sudden return loomed over her. And now this accident added another layer of uncertainty to an already tumultuous moment. Yet, leaving felt impossible. She stepped closer to the group of onlookers, squinting to get a better glimpse of what had happened. There were faces, some familiar, some strangers. Everyone was stunned, peering at whichever details told the story of that crash. There it was, the flash of police lights reflected off the home's windows, adding an oily hue to the sidewalk. Sarah pulled her phone from her pocket, her instincts kicking in. She raised it to snap a quick picture, maybe even catch the number of the car. A voice broke through the din. Is everyone okay? A woman shouted, wringing her hands. Does anyone need help? I'll check, came a young man's voice. He seemed eager to jump into action. Sarah felt a pang of hope at the sight of community responding to an unfolding crisis. Then the weight of her father's presence registered in her periphery. Shouldn't we go see if anyone's hurt? He pressed, taking a tentative step forward. His eyes were wide with a mix of anxiety and a desperate need to step into a role he had once occupied. A father protecting his children. Stay here, Dad, Sarah insisted, a protective instinct rising within her. She didn't want the past interfering with the present when her children were involved. Jake took her hand, squeezing it tightly. I'm scared, Mom, he whispered. What if someone got really hurt? Sarah knelt down to his level, feeling the warmth of his small hand in hers. I know, sweetheart, but sometimes it helps to check. Let us just stay here, and if they need us, we'll know. A few moments passed, the tension thickening as more people flooded the scene. Emergency lights danced in fractured reflections, illuminating the faces of those concerned. Gazes darted about in confusion. Sarah was overwhelmed by a wave of memories. And then her father spoke again, his voice quieter but filled with urgency. Sarah, can we talk somewhere else? This isn't the place for us. He was right. The chaos around them was clamorous, but it felt cruel to shove aside her yearning for answers. You're right, she replied, her heart thudding in her chest. Was this the moment to finally dive deep into unresolved feelings? Or did she need to put everything aside and focus on the pressing distractions of now? Stay close, okay? She said to Jake and Lily, who nodded, eyes glued to the unfolding drama nearby. Together, they moved away from the crowd, her father's presence wrapping around her like a heavy blanket. She realized that amidst the chaos, reconciliations were still available. But at what cost? And who would emerge unscathed when all was said and done? As they settled onto a porch step, she breathed deeply, preparing herself to tackle the labyrinth of emotions within her. If only she could find the courage to untangle the knots in her heart, especially knowing the world was still spinning around them, demanding her attention. But the unexpected crashing sound from the street echoed again, and a figure stumbled out from the crowd, a familiar sight with an unfamiliar twist. Would this bring them closer or shatter everything again? Sarah's heart jolted at the sight of the figure lurching forward. It was a young man, his hair tousled and eyes dazed, a hint of blood trickling down his forehead. She recognized him, Mark, a boy from the neighborhood who had grown up alongside Jake and Lily. They used to play together in the backyard before life had pulled them all in different directions. Mark, Sarah shouted instinctively, and the crowd parted like the Red Sea as he stumbled towards her, his fear and confusion stark against the backdrop of chaos. Are you okay? She managed to ask, her voice taut with worry. I think so, he stammered, catching his breath, clearly shaken. I was driving, and then everything happened so fast. While Sarah took a step closer, Jake tightened his grip on her hand. Mom, what is going on? He asked, eyes flicking between her and Mark, the fear radiating off him palpable. Just stay right here, honey, she reassured him, not taking her eyes off Mark. The boy was visibly trembling, the color draining from his face as the reality of the accident began to sink in. Mark, you hit that car? Sarah asked, needing to understand how this had happened and if anyone was seriously injured. He nodded, swallowing hard. I lost control, I don't know what happened. 1 minute, everything was fine, and the next his words trailed off, fear clouding his features. A voice from the crowd called out, I think someone's hurt inside. It was the young man who had rushed in to check on those affected, pointing towards the overturned vehicle. Mark, we need to help, Sarah urged, her instincts urging her forward despite the weight of uncertainty and fear that pressed down upon her. No, wait. He pushed himself up straight, shaking his head violently. I can't. What if I hurt someone? What if panic washed over him, and before she could comfort him, he spun around and bolted back toward the crowd, his footsteps carrying a mix of regret and urgency. Mark, Sarah called, but he was lost in a sea of bodies. The sirens approached quickly, drowning out the murmurs of concern. Then she heard a new noise, the sound of sobbing rising above the chaos. Turning, she spotted a woman at the edge of the crowd, her face in her hands, shaking with despair. Instinctively, Sarah felt a tug in her heart. This woman might hold answers to questions she hadn't even asked yet. Is someone inside? Sarah whispered, glancing at her father, who was now watching the scene unfold with a solemn expression. I think so, he replied, his voice barely audible above the growing commotion. But it's hard to tell. She could feel the weight of so many eyes watching, of so many emotions swirling in the air. Adrenaline coursed through her veins. This was about more than just understanding what had happened with Mark. It was a moment where fragmented lives were colliding. Jake, can you stay with Lily? Sarah asked, though she knew the answer was already written in the fear in his eyes. I'll be right back. But before she could react, her father took her arm. We should stay together, Sarah. This is too dangerous. Just then, the familiar sound of her phone buzzing in her pocket broke through her overwhelming emotions. She pulled it out and saw a message flashing at her. It's urgent. We need to talk. I'm at the hospital. Maybe this was the sign she needed, a call to action. They were all intertwined in this mess of accidents and truth, with every moment leading closer to something bigger. Deep breath, Sarah. As she turned back to face her father, the realization settled in. Life was about to change once again. Would she have the courage to navigate through the fallout? The day was far from over, and she could already feel the tremors of what lay ahead, a convergence of old faces and new fears, ready to challenge everything she thought she knew. What would she uncover when she faced that reality? Sarah's pulse raced as she clutched her phone and scanned the crowd for a familiar face. The hospital. What was happening there? A knot twisted in her stomach as the sobs from the woman and the distant sounds of sirens wrapped around her like a heavy blanket. Mom? Jake's small voice broke through, worry etched on his face. Are you okay? She crouched down to his level, forcing a smile that felt more like a mask. I'm fine, sweetheart. Just a lot going on. I need to see what I can do. But I want to come with you. He protested, his grip on Lily tightening as if she could offer him some measure of comfort. I know, but you need to stay safe right here. Please, just for a moment. She ushered them to a corner of the parking lot, a brief safe haven from the chaos unfolding around them. As she turned to urge her father to come with her, she found him already moving toward the overturned car. Dad! She cried, but he didn't look back, focused on assessing the situation. Her heart raced as she followed him, the air thick with anxiety and the smell of burnt rubber. The crowd's murmurs faded against the overwhelming noise of reality crashing down. This was more than an accident. It felt like the crack of a dam, everything pressing against her was about to spill over. Sarah! Her father called, his voice tense as he squatted near the vehicle. Get help over here. The urgency in his tone drove her forward, heart pounding. She spotted a paramedic with a stretcher approaching, their faces grim, and her feet took her to a nearby first responder, someone who looked like they might help. Excuse me, she shouted, desperation edging her words. What can I do? The responder was a woman in her 30s, calm amid the chaos. We're trying to get to the injured inside. Can you see if anyone's breathing? Check for signs of life if it's safe. Right, Sarah nodded, her mind racing. She pressed against the car, feeling the cold metal beneath her fingertips, needing to calm the storm in her heart. Just as she leaned closer, another person from the crowd shouted, There's a child in there. The words hit her like a lightning bolt. A child? Panic roared in her chest as she glanced at her father, who had gone pale. Dad, we have to help, she urged, but he held up a hand to stop her. Be careful, Sarah. It might not be safe yet, he warned, though she saw the worry in his eyes. In that moment, the familiar buzz of her phone jolted her again. It was another message, another call back to the hospital. Ignoring the buzzing in her pocket, she turned back to the panicked crowd. She had to stay focused. Mark! She suddenly shouted, remembering his fear and confusion. Where's Mark? Images of his trembling face flashed through her mind. Could he be somewhere nearby, battling his own demons? Suddenly she spotted him on the edge of the crowd, hands tangled in his hair, eyes wide. I should be stopped, he muttered to himself, clearly fighting his own storm of guilt. Mark! She rushed to him, her heart aching for both him and the unknown child inside the wreck. Did you see what happened? He asked, his voice breaking. It's my fault. I didn't mean to. Right now, we need to focus on helping. You're not to blame, she said urgently, locking eyes with him. Come on. We have to be stronger than this. As they began moving back toward the vehicle, The reality of what was happening weighed heavily on her. Too many lives were at stake. The air crackled not just with fear but with the potential for everything to change again. Would they be capable of facing whatever lay within that car? In that heartbeat, she realized something profound. Sometimes confronting the past was the only way to truly move forward. And as she took a step closer, she couldn't shake the feeling that more answers awaited, not just about the accident, but about everything else she had been running from. Would they find hope amidst chaos? Or was this just the beginning of a deeper rupture? Sarah. Her father's voice cut through the chaos again, sharper this time. She turned back to see him motioning desperately, his knees deep in the shattered glass and twisted metal, his expression a mix of determination and fear. "Stay close," Sarah called back to Mark as she dashed toward her dad, her heart pounding in rhythm with the frantic shouts around her. The sounds of sirens and cries spun together into a cacophony that painted this moment in desperation. She could barely hear her own thoughts over it all. "Is anyone inside?" Her father's voice was strained as he peered through the broken window. "I can't see." She ducked down, taking her father's place beside him. The sight inside the car sent chills down her spine. The seat was a mess of twisted fabric and metal, and she could barely make out the shapes within. Panic threatened to swallow her whole. "There's a kid!" A woman yelled from the crowd again, her face pale, her hands held over her mouth. "Dad! We need to get them out." The words flew from Sarah's mouth, fueled by instinct. "Hold on, Sarah," he said, his voice low and steady, trying to keep the fear out. "We don't know if we can move the car without making things worse." But deep down, Sarah knew they couldn't wait. Someone might be trapped. She felt the surge of urgency swell inside her, almost overpowering. "Let me help." Mark was next to her now, eyes wide, body trembling. "I can pull on the door. Maybe it'll open a little bit." "No," her dad said suddenly, that tone brokering no argument. "You both stay back. We need professionals for this." Each second that passed felt like an eternity. Sarah began to bubble with frustration and helplessness. "But what if the child is hurt? We can't just stand here." "Together," she said, voice steely. "When I count to 3, we can at least try to see if we can pull the door away." "All right," her father agreed, though she could see the hesitation in his eyes. 2, 3. With a grunt they pressed against the door edge. It groaned, resisting, but for a moment it budged a little, just enough to see further inside. Sarah leaned in, heart racing as she searched for signs of life. "Hey, are you okay?" she shouted inside, her voice trembling. But no reply came, just a suffocating silence that felt like the weight of the world pressing down. Mark's hand clutched her arm, squeezing tightly. "There's got to be someone in there. Someone has to respond." Panic churned in Sarah's belly. "Maybe I can reach in, see if I can touch them?" "Don't. Sarah, you might get caught," Mark warned, fear evident in his voice. Just then, the glint of something caught her eye and arm. There it was, resting against the broken glass, unmoving. "Dad!" she gasped, pointing. "There's definitely someone in there." His gaze followed where she pointed, his eyes now wide with alarm. "We need to keep trying then. We can't let fear stop us now." The sirens blared louder as a fire truck finally pulled into the parking lot, lights flashing, pushing the crowd back. Relief washed over Sarah, but worry still clawed at her heart. She could see her father and Mark's faces flicker with hope and fear. The first responders began to swarm the car, cutting equipment in hand. But to the crowd, Sarah felt as if time slowed to a crawl. And then suddenly, among all the shouting and swift movements, Mark leaned close and whispered, what if this is just the beginning of something we can't control?" His words echoed in her mind. Did he sense the deeper impact of chaos around them? In that moment, Sarah realized that while she felt compelled to act now, there was much more beneath the surface. As the first responders opened the door, the tension crackled like electricity in the air. Would they find hope buried within that twisted wreckage? Or would the answer hold even darker truths they were not prepared to face? The doors of the wrecked car swung open, and the chaos around Sarah transformed into a frantic symphony of voices and urgent movements. Her heart raced as the first responders scrambled inside, their professionalism a sharp contrast to the uncertainty swirling in Sarah's chest. She clutched Jake's little hand, feeling his sweat-soaked palm tremble and hold tight. "Mom, who's in there?" he asked, eyes wide with fear and curiosity. His innocence tugged at Sarah's heart. This moment was bigger than them. Let us hope for the best, buddy, she whispered, forcing a smile that felt thin against the weight of the moment. The first responders moved with purpose, suited in bright uniforms that flashed like beacons in the heavy silence. She saw shadows shifting inside the car as they worked, their faces etched with concentration. A paramedic shouted something about needing a stretcher, and Sarah's breath hitched. A child was trapped. Why hadn't she known? While her knees trembled, she stole a glance at her father. He looked back at her, his eyes a mix of fear and determination. The hurt from years of distance flickered in the air, reminding her of old wounds, but now was not the time for that. Not with lives in the balance. The crowd seemed to hush, all eyes locked on the responders as they began extracting the victim. Sarah's heart hammered against her ribs, thoughts spiraling. If it was a child, what if it was Mark? What if it was someone she knew? The questions clouded her mind, filling it to the brim with dread. And then they pulled out a small figure, a girl, with dark curls framing her pale face. Time froze as Sarah felt the world slip away. The girl was unconscious, and a gasp rippled through the gathered crowd. Distant sirens sang in the background, but all she could hear was the pounding of her own heart. "Stay back!" shouted the lead paramedic as they began to work, signaling their need for space. "Is she okay?" Sarah heard herself ask, her voice tight. "Give her space." Another shouted back, and yet unpredictably, the crowd surged forward, desperate for answers, for hope. "Let us be strong together," her father whispered, urgency coloring his tone. She nodded, feeling his reassurance as they watched the first responders work to save the girl. Time shifted again, every second stretching out, filled with hope dashed against overwhelming fear. The paramedics placed the girl onto a stretcher, and they packed her into the waiting ambulance. As they whisked her away, Sarah felt a piece of her heart tug along, a frayed thread pulling her thoughts to home. The sirens blended with the distant sound of families delivering meals on the corner, children laughing in the park across the street, the cyclical embrace of life continuing on. "Is she all right?" Mark's voice cut through her haze, and she turned. His face was pale, guilt gnawing away at his composure. "I don't know, Mark," she said softly, "but we must give her strength, just like we hope to find in ourselves." The light had begun to dim as dusk settled in, casting an orange glow across the scene, the kind that ignited reflections, pushing shadows into the corners. Families huddled together in concerned whispers, some gossiping, while others lit candles. An impromptu gathering formed as folks lit their torches of compassion. A wave of support glimmered beneath it all, a community ready to embrace those in need. Sarah felt her children reach out, clutching her like they might float away. Lily asked, "Will she be okay, Mom?" "I hope so, sweetheart," Sarah replied, squeezing their hands comfortingly, feeling the unity stirred within. Real strength comes from how we support each other, through the fear and through the pain. Mark hung back, color returning to his face yet worry lingering in his eyes. "What if she doesn't make it?" he said, fear overtaken by regrets. "Then we carry her spirit forward. We honor her by piecing our hearts together," she declared, firmness sweeping across her voice. Her own transformation was symbiotic with theirs. They were all tangled together in this grand tapestry of fragile lives, destinies entwined through threads of support and community. At that pivotal moment, a familiar burst echoed in the distance, the sound of laughter. Kids playing in the park, the kind her own children would bring alive during summer nights. This played a gentle hope within her. They were not just here to confront challenges. They were here to rediscover the beauty and strength within the bonds that forged their lives. As the sun melted into the horizon, painting the sky with hues of gold and lavender, Sarah stepped forward, her heart swelling with resolve. "I'm ready to face whatever this is, together." She looked at her father and felt the warmth of his presence behind her. "And let us find out who we can become on the other side." With a newfound sense of purpose, Sarah reached for her dad's hand, feeling the strength they could build from reconnection. Beside her, Jake and Lily held her waist, eyes sparkling with newfound courage as they faced this new chapter, uncertainty shimmering like the stars that would soon take the night sky. Moments later, the sounds of sirens faded, but the calls of hope echoed louder. Together they gathered their courage to step forward, fortified not just in blood, but through dreams, aspirations, and hearts knitted by a community that refused to let anyone stand alone. "Let us go home," Sarah finally said, her voice steady with assurance. Together. As they walked back to the safety of their garden, their sanctuary suspended in time, she felt the winds of change gently caress her face. A reminder that healing comes not just from confronting the past, but from nurturing what lies ahead. And she knew that the garden was only the beginning. Now it's your turn. You need to subscribe now to the channel to not miss the next exclusive stories that will stir your soul. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and support this journey. Comment your reactions and feelings about this ending. Let your voice be heard. And please, share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. This is the moment to show your support. Don't wait, not even one more second. Real fans know the value of lifting each other up.